What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright, so this is a video request that I got from one of my subscribers on this platform, and he wanted me to give my opinion about how would Elgin Baylor play today. And I mean, that's it's not an easy question to answer. Really, you can't answer it. You can only just give your opinion, right? There's no definitive answers here. Let me just put that out there. First of all, there's no definitive answers. I get the impression, because like I said, there's not a lot of footage from Elgin Baylor, and in particular in his prime. Now, once the NBA secured that ABC contract, then there were more games actually being broadcast on television. Even with that, it wasn't every game. So from 1964-5 onward, there's more games, but in his best years, 57 to 63, actually 57 to 64, 65, to 66, there's not that much footage, highlights of games. But I get the impression that if he was playing today, he wouldn't be a great outside shooter. I think he would. I mean, it's hard to put a number on it. You know what I mean? But I would say I think he'd be a slightly below average 3-point shooter. I think he'd probably be 31, 32%. I don't know. It just feels right. You know what I mean? I don't think he'd be a great 3-point shooter, and I don't think he was a strong jump shooter. I'm not saying he was terrible, but I don't think he was a strong jump shooter. I think his strengths were getting in the passing lanes, getting in the lanes, driving to the basket. I think that those were his strengths. So Elgin would work best on a team where the bigs didn't dominate the ball or didn't demand having the basketball. He would work best on teams where the lanes are open. But then again, everything's pushed to the perimeter today anyway. So that may not really be a big problem for him in today's basketball. But I definitely think that his strengths would be driving to the basket, rebounding. Obviously, he was a tenacious rebounder for a small forward, maybe one of the greatest small forward rebounders in the history of the game. 13.5 points per game for his career. I don't know if he would be averaging that many now, but I definitely think he'd probably be averaging, I'd give him 9.5 to 10 rebounds per game now. I think he would average even more assists today because they've loosened up assist rules and what constitutes an assist. I think he averaged like 6. To be honest with you, I kind of think he would slightly resemble LeBron James in some of his numbers. I think he'd be a fantastic scorer. I think his field goal percentage would be much higher because there will be less resistance to the basket now. When he played, it was the land of the trees. You had resistance to the basket. You had real bigs. Remember, even though he was a pretty big small forward, but he was 6'5", you had Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell and Nate Thurman and at times Zelmo Beatty when he wasn't in the NBA, Zelmo Beatty and Willis Reed, and later on Elvin Hayes, Wes Unseld, later on Bob Lanier, Johnny Red Kerr, Walter Dukes, and there are a lot of other big men that I just can't think of off the top of my head. You gotta remember, this is when the league only had 8 to 14 teams. So the fact that I'm naming like 14, 15 good big men, and the league only had 8 to 14 teams, tells you how dominant the bigs were at that time. And there's some I'm just not remembering. Walt Bellamy is another one. So this was a league where centers dominated in the paint, and that affected the efficacy of being a player that plays in the paint or drives the basket. But now with that effectively removed, I would say his field goal percentage would skyrocket. I would say, what did he shoot? 43% from the floor for his career, 43%. I would say maybe 48, 49% now. Because like I said, I don't think he'd be a strong jump shooter, but he scored a lot of points in the paint, like LeBron. I don't think he'd be as big as LeBron. He was 6'5", 225 back then. It stands to reason if he was born 60 years later, in 1994, and he's 29 years old today, what would we give him? 6'6.5", 235, 240 maybe, right? But let's give him the same the same game, not basic game. Let's give him the same attributes that he had back then. I think he'd be a deft passer, but not the best passer, but willing passer. But I think that he would be like James Harden, like Allen Iverson, like Rick Barry, even more so than LeBron. He would shoot the hell out that basketball. Shoot. To the point where there were some games when you look at his numbers, I think he'd be criticized sometimes for being selfish. Because that was his mindset. He was a determined, dogged scorer. They didn't think anybody could stop him. So there would be some games where he would have 40 points, but he took 40 shots to get them. I think there would be games like that. Then again, considering that I think he would have an easier time scoring and his proclivity to shoot the basketball at a very high rate, it could get shots off in any different type of situation, he may still have these monster performances. By that I mean 70, maybe 80 points. I think that would be possible with him, considering that he would probably get more superstar calls. He'd be more efficient because the defenses are better. Players are more at depth at being concerned about the field goal percentages. Back then, part of the reason why field goal percentages were much lower is because guys would just take the first available shot oftentimes. Now players want to take quality shots, and that wasn't something that was always emphasized in the 1960s. So I would say that would be part of the equation. So, and he would probably take the occasional outside shot. So yeah, I can see him having even more 50, 60 point performances. What did he have? What did he have in his career? 18 50-point games? So I could see him easily having 30, 35 50-point games in an alternate later Elgin Baylor career. Weaknesses, I don't know if Elgin was the greatest defender. I don't think he was horrible. I think he was average. Sometimes he could shoot you out of a ball game. Sometimes he could take bad shots. Even I think if you put him in today's league, he would take those bad shots. He could sometimes do what some of these great players do to get too competitive. They think that they can make any shot. He was capable of that. And sometimes he would shoot the Lakers. Not Jerry West, but sometimes he would shoot the Lakers out of series. They've had some pretty bad shooting performances, so I think that would be a knock on him. But I think that he would be a great player. I don't want to put no numbers out there, but if you put a gun to my head, I don't know, man. On a great team with players around him, a championship level team, in his prime, I don't know, 20, maybe 26 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 48% from the floor overall, 31% from downtown, 77% from the line. He gets the line a lot. Sometimes his shooting would be a little bit iffy. Sometimes he would be magnificent. On a bad team, I think his field goal percentage would go down a little bit. His scoring would go up, way up. I think on a bad team, he might lead the NBA scoring. 33, 34 points a night. Actually, when I think about it, no, more than that. I think if he played on a bad team the way that he shot, as many shots as he took, 30, 36, 37 points a night. And I'm not exaggerating. He used to shoot the ball that he averaged more shot attempts than anybody else in the history of the NBA. More than James Harden, more than Allen Iverson, more than Michael Jordan, more than Kobe, more than anybody. He would shoot the hell out of that ball. So I could see him averaging on a bad team 37 points a night, maybe 9.5 rebounds, 4 assists, 46% shooting from the floor. Because I think he would shoot more threes, his percentage may actually go up a little bit from downtown, 32%, 33%. Gets the foul line 12, 13 times a night. Yeah, I can see him be a monstrous scorer. And he would have those rare nights when he would score 65 plus points. But the frustration would be that he can only lead a team but so far without another great player. And that would always be holding back. And I could see comparisons to James Harden in that aspect. Though I doubt that he would have the choke jobs, the sheer choke jobs that James Harden has had. But that's kind of how I look at him. I think he'd still be a great player. But in free agency, he wouldn't always have a Jerry West around him. And I definitely can see him requesting a trade eventually, or in free agency leaving for greener pastures as he got older. That's just me. Okay? But anyway, I'm trying to think of something I left out. I can see him making an occasional highlight reel with dunks and moves and, reverse layups and, semi hanging in the air with jumpers. And I can still see him being a perennial highlight reel guy in the 90s. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.